All right, I got a bunch of folks filtering in. Thank you for joining. We are going to get started here in a minute. I was last minute building a quick poll to get a feel for some folks' familiarity with some of the different tools we have. So I'm going to go ahead and let me proofread my poll real quick before I launch it. All right, save. And launch. All right, so you now should, as we're all getting started and getting settled in, there should be a poll open. I called it discussion familiarity, but really the question is twofold. This session is kind of the broad survey of all things Harmonize. And so I want to know, how much experience people have with some of the different tools to make sure that if everybody were expert on something, that the two core tools that we normally train on, that I would not cover those as much. So I'm seeing that's actually not the case. So we have some folks who are not as familiar with some of the core tools. So that is good to know. Glad I ran that poll. All right, let me give a couple more minutes for folks to come in. So the other thing I'd love to know is what subject area are you teaching? So as well as what LMS are you um, actually, let me think about that. Don't answer that LMS question in the chat. We're going to build a quick poll for that one too. I should have done some prep work for that. David, can you build a poll for which LMS they're using so I can make sure we're demoing in the correct LMS? And then put into the chat, I see there's an instructional designer. If you're a teacher, what are you teaching? And that way I can take individual examples from what we're working on, from what you're teaching, and try to incorporate those into what I'm talking about so that you can get a feel for it. So go ahead and put that out in the chat. There's a bunch of awesome things coming in. Okay. For those that are just joining, there's a poll open on the screen, getting your familiarity with some of our tools, and we're putting out in the chat what we're teaching, if you are teaching, or if you're an instructional designer or ed tech guru, whatever the case may be, throw out in the chat so that we can make sure we're customizing as much as we can for the audience. All right, and so now, David, I'm going to end my poll. Did you manage to quickly build one as on my last minute? What LMS are you using?
Yep, got it.
Go ahead and launch that one while we do some introductions. All right, so for those that don't know me, my name is Marcus. I'm one of the owners of Harmonize. I have with me David, who runs a lot of our webinars and trainings as well. And the two of us are going to be walking you through sort of all of the Harmonize tools. He speaks a lot with instructors. I speak a lot with instructors. We're going to be pulling in examples of how we've heard these tools be used because we honestly don't believe it's tools for the tool's sake. We believe it's what can you do with it in your particular class. So that's what we're going to try to keep this centered on. Looks like lots of Blackboard and some Canvas. Wonder if I'm good enough in Blackboard to do this full demo in Blackboard.
Marcus,
Um,
I looked at the registration list before earlier today, and we probably have a good amount of West Virginia instructors on our,
okay,
so
cool.
that would be the
All right,
Blackboard.
so I'm going to do a mixture of Canvas and Blackboard because I know, for example, I don't have our peer review tool set up yet in Blackboard because we're still working through getting all of our demo content set up since it's such a new tool. But yep, see the West Virginia. All right, so let's dive in. Agenda for today is that I'm going to walk through all the different ways you can engage with your class using Harmonize. Most of the time when people begin with Harmonize, they begin with discussion forums. It's sort of the entry point that most people start with, but then it's a question of how do you get out into some of the other offerings that we have? How do you incorporate those into your course, and what do those look like? And um, so that's going to be a lot of what we're covering today. I am going to go through the discussion tools because there's quite a few of you that aren't familiar with them yet, and then I'm going to pivot into some of the other tools as well, so you can see what those look like. So I'm going to start in Blackboard and then I'll swing back around into Canvas. And when I'm in Canvas, you'll see me go ahead and open things up in a new window so those that aren't familiar with Canvas aren't distracted by the Canvas left menu and such as well. And since we have a bunch of WVU folks, are you guys Ultra or are you original for what? Ultra, Ultra, Ultra. Okay. Let me jump into Ultra then. David, do you happen to have a favorite discussion topic you use in Ultra when you're doing your individual?
The Anatomy 101 is in. Oh, oh, is it in Learn? It might
And
be
it's
in
in
Learn.
Learn. Most of my stuff's in Learn as well.
Uh,
All
let
right.
me.
It
Not off
is
the top of my
almost
head.
always Canvas people when we get into one of these things. So, so now I'm backpedaling a little, but I have an introduction. Let's see. Well, I'm just going to go back into original and then I'll talk through some of the differences.
The bridge one might be in Ultra, maybe. Yes, iconic bridge design is in Ultra.
I found one for myself here as well.
Okay, got it.
All right, cool. Okay, so starting with harmonized discussion. Sorry for that little noise and bouncing around between different things there when we're going into it all. I'm going to share my screen. We're going to walk through it. So I'm going to start with discussions. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about peer review, and then I'm going to take a step away from those sort of like high intensity engagement activities, and I'm going to go into some activities that you can use that are not quite as intense. The way I think about our tools is that just like if you're at a cocktail party and you're wanting to meet people, you don't jump in and immediately be like, "What are your life goals?" You don't have like a really intense, deep conversation, or maybe you do, and that's you. But it's like, how do you sort of warm people up? So we're going to kind of cover some of that as well. Of like, okay, we do have a space for the really intense, deep academic conversations. We're going to show those because that is where most people leverage Harmonize. But we're also going to back away from that and be like, how do we actually run some quick polls? How do we get people to read the content better? How do we do all of the things that lead up to a really good in-depth academic discussion or peer review, as that may be? So logistics wise, yeah, David, thanks for putting that in the chat. David's going to be in the chat monitoring things. He will interrupt me with questions. He also will have some of his own examples to add to this discussion. So he and I will kind of be going back and forth. And you are also welcome. It's a smallish group, or at least it was when I last looked at the participants, about 20 people. So if you do have a question that you're like, I just can't type all of that, just let us know. You can raise your hand or you can put in the chat and we will allow you to talk so you can come on voice. It's not necessary, not mandatory, but you can do so as well. And then we will actually, James, we will give you some guides on how exactly to add these things into the different LMSs. David, if you want to go ahead and get those now in case people want to follow along at home, they can, we can give you some of those guides as well. I will say there are two additional things where we offer different trainings where if you leave this and you're like, okay, that whet my appetite, but I really want to deep dive on peer review, or I really want to deep dive, much more time spent on discussions and how we grade with them and all of the setup and stuff that goes along with it. David has put out a link to different trainings, webinars. We have dedicated trainings to peer review and to webinar that are more in depth as well. We also have massive support guides that walk through all this content in addition to that. The things I'm going to cover today are a little higher level of bouncing between the tools, almost like a breadth of what's available to you. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to jump into Blackboard for those that were Canvas users. This will look very similar in Canvas, only you'll have a Canvas left menu. Blackboard does a nice job of opening up content entirely on the screen here like this. So beginning with discussions. Our discussion tool is a one-for-one replacement for your Blackboard or Canvas discussions. The key differences that I'm going to cover are that we really are much easier to navigate. We're much easier to do multimedia, and we have a couple nice features in terms of multiple due dates and auto grading for the instructors as well, so they can spend more of their time on the substantive interaction with their students as opposed to actually spending their time grading and such. So just walking through this real quick, the very first thing you see or the student sees are multiple due dates. And you're going to see this a lot covered throughout a lot of our tools. We have this belief that students always procrastinate. And so we allow you as the instructor or you as the ID to set up multiple due dates to be able to pull the students in earlier so they can start interacting with each other earlier. In discussions, that's make your first post early. In your peer review, that's get your assignment in so we can start the peer review process. We're even adding these into some document annotation features, which I'll talk about in a moment. So the idea is the student and you see, okay, here's what I'm required to do. Their students are going to be doing one post, it's worth 50 points, two comments worth 50 points, and then I, as the instructor, have laid out some instructions for them. This particular instruction is going to be a little bit of video and an activity for the students to participate in. One thing that we like to consider is that the discussions aren't always just discuss something. We actually give them something to do. So you can almost think of it as an interactive workspace where they can be generating different ideas and content and sharing them and working together to improve their own content. And that's what those particular instructions were asking students to do. It was like not just introduce yourself, but introduce yourself in a specific way, maybe generating an image about your life and how it relates to the particular subject we're going to be teaching or something like that. And each of the student posts or instructor posts comes in and displays as a card. So when I said easier to navigate, we get this nice gallery view of, there are 4 posts currently in this discussion, and there's a little bit of preview about what they are. And I can go in and click on any one of these and see what's happening in that post. In this case, it's someone who wrote a haiku and uploaded a picture of their dog, and someone else drew on the picture of that dog as a response of like, oh, look at the puppy dog eyes. Obviously not terribly academic in nature, but we are early in the class and we're sort of building that peer connectivity we're looking for by having the students introduce themselves to each other. And the way this works is that the students basically, they can go back out to that gallery view and pick the next thing that they want to see. In this case, it was an AI generated image tying like my hobby to what the class is about, which is chemistry in some ways. And then the ability to react to those things, the ability to add comments and such is all here. And we're now in a dedicated space to whatever this particular student work is. So some examples of this, because we are doing images and videos, et cetera, anytime the student is creating a post or responding, they can do all sorts of things. I scrolled too quickly there. They can, they give the subject for the post here. They can write some text about it. But the power of Harmonize in all of the tools that we're going to discuss today comes down to the fact that we don't just have you do text. You can actually do whatever you want. So in this case, let's say I'm going to record my screen. I can go ahead and select which screen I want to share. Let's see, what's a good screen to share? I will share my course module design in Canvas. I know that's not terribly exciting, but you can see I'm sharing a Canvas screen here and I have a little talking head and it's ready for me to record. So if I saw a communications class in there, for example, let's say the discussions are really not just talking about communication styles and pathos versus logos, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, inside of a communications class and a speech class, but it's actually doing examples of that. So they can actually do that directly inside of Harmonize. And so they can be like, here's an example of me presenting a PowerPoint slide, leveraging ethos as a strategy. Whatever that case may be, they can do it straight inside of Harmonize. So they're submitting rich work. As soon as I click the record button, I am presenting my screen. I can go through the PowerPoint slides. I can do whatever it is. And then it's there for my students to discuss and talk about. And I did see someone asked about some of the videos. They can actually comment on my particular video. If maybe I did a PowerPoint slide with 4 slides in it, they could actually watch it up until slide 4, and their response could be, I'm going to pause it at slide 4, I'm going to draw on your slides, and I'm going to offer some feedback, and then I'm going to do my own example or something along those lines. So the power of Harmonize is that it's not just text discussion, it's sharing work, it's sharing things that are not text, so that we can demonstrate learning and share learning in different ways between the students. And you have a whole slew of these types of tools here. I could do just straight video, where I'm simply recording video straight into Harmonize. This is better for quick video reflections of the learning if you want them to actually come through for an English class and talk about their learning process, for example. So that they did write a paper, they shared the paper up above, they're reflecting on the learning here and talking about the writing process, or maybe they were using the screen share tool and screen sharing their essay and talking about the writing process. And so we can create these layers of self-analysis and learning that are demonstrated in all these ways. And it's great from 2 perspectives. It's great from a learning science perspective because we've gotten them to go much deeper. It's great from UDL, from a Universal Design for Learning, because they are expressing themselves however they see fit. But it's also great because it's harder for AI to do this type of stuff. So if you're teaching English and you're frustrated in your comp class that they're all just using AI to write the papers, have them screen share the paper, have them do a video reflection on it, whatever it is, a little more proof that they actually did the work, a little more deep thought from them around what that work looked like. And so this is the content discussion, if you will. This is we are discussing any topic, we're sharing anything we want to do. It's very informal. I'm tasked with making my initial submission and then going and responding to 2 of my peers, sort of in that typical discussion fashion, but it can be much richer for what it actually looks like. This is what we do. This is what we call harmonized discussions. And once again, this is inside of Blackboard. I'll open up Canvas to do one of the next tools. So once again, multiple due dates, as many as you want. instructions, which we actually have some AI tools to help you write. We'll help you guys use AI to help you build a rubric if that's what you want. We'll even coach the students with AI if that's what you'd like. And all of this is to be able to get them to get content in and start sharing their thoughts in ways that they just couldn't do inside of Blackboard or Canvas, or if anyone joined from another LMS, frankly, from any of the LMSs. All right, so that is the whirlwind tour of discussions. But the things that even beyond discussion, the things I want you to keep in mind as we go into this is, I'm going to show you some other tools, but they all leverage this idea that we're not just operating in a text-based world anymore. We are operating in a world where you can do whatever you need on your computer and share it with your instructor or share it with your fellow students to be able to get the content and get your ideas and demonstrate your learning as we're going through. Before I leave discussions, do I have any questions along what a general idea of a discussion is that you want me to revisit here before we go into some of the other tools that you can use to engage students? Let me give folks a moment to see if they don't. All right, let me, I'm gonna share a Canvas window now instead of my Blackboard window, because the next thing I'm gonna show you is actually doing peer review. The Canvas users have a peer review tool. I don't remember if Blackboard Ultra has a peer review tool or not, but by and large, a lot of the peer review tools suffer crazy headaches for instructors. Like, it's just so hard to set up. It's so hard to manage the process. It's so hard to grade. And by and large, it's mostly text or paper based. Paper meaning submitted, not physical paper. And so when we are talking about peer review, we are really talking about more of a broader, easy to manage process that leverages the same things I was just showing you in terms of multimedia use as well. So now I'm stepping up a level in academic nature. I went from informal discussion, sharing work. I'm going to go one level deeper now and talk about formalized, hey, Bob, you are reviewing Betty's work. You're using a rubric to do that. And here's what I want you to accomplish. We're going to go into this deeper step. And then after I cover that, we'll step back into some of the tools that are not quite as deep from an engagement perspective. All right, so let me open this up in a new window. Actually, as I say, did I share this whole window, David? Can you see the new window I just shared?
Yes, you're
Okay,
sharing.
perfect. Okay, so I'm going to show you peer review here. First, I'm in as the instructor view. I probably should have logged straight in as a student, but you'll see that it looks very, very similar, almost exactly the same to what I showed you for discussions. You as instructor have this view where you see everybody's work, and you see, instead of posts and comments, you see their initial work and how many reviews have they received, once again driven by multiple due dates. It is on purpose that it looks almost exactly the same as the discussion, because we don't want students to learn new UI unless we absolutely have to have them learn a new UI. But let me log in as a student now and show you the student view, because I think that will make things quite a bit more interesting. Okay, I'm logging in as Nick, who is a student who has already submitted his initial work for peer review and is getting ready to finish his second peer review of his fellow students' work. So this is a student who is already kind of halfway through the peer review process. Let me go ahead and go to the Panopticon. And I'm going to open this up in a new window again so that you guys aren't distracted by the Canvas UI. Okay, so I'm talking about peer review, and I'm sure the people who are in the English and comp classes are like, yeah, we do peer review, or yeah, it's 100% fits into our class. But I also see classes here like music, for example, social work, engineering, etc. We like to think of peer review as not something that's just isolated to comp classes. So imagine I'm actually having to critique, I'm doing a music appreciation class, and they're actually having to go to a session out in the real world, record some music with their phone, upload it as step one, and then self-analyze what they appreciated about that music and how that tied to the things you're talking about in class. But then you want to do a formalized review and be like, hey, students, I want you to also watch the pieces of work that they've uploaded, and I want you to also critique and list why you appreciate them and how. So I've set up a much more formal process to be able to assign students to each other to look at each other's work and perform a set series of tasks associated with that. So it doesn't just have to be for communications classes. This can be for anything. In this case, I'm in here as Nick. This is more of a communications style class that we're looking at because I've done PowerPoint presentations and such. And I, as Nick, have submitted my work. I have reviewed my classmate Teresa, and I'm getting ready to review my next classmate because I was assigned to do 2 peer reviews. As I said, this is like a communications class. So Laverne actually uploaded her work. She did a reflection on it. She actually used our screen share to do a PowerPoint presentation. And then anonymously, I am actually reviewing her work. I am filling out the rubric and leaving comments for each of the things that she's done. So each of these is clickable and they can leave comments or are required to leave comments on things here. So in that music case, maybe I'm actually analyzing and appreciating the music from a rubric that has 4 different dimensions, and I'm rating what I think about the piece of work and leaving commentary on it. And then I have the same tools that I was talking about before to be able to leave overall commentary, record my own videos. I can actually grab their written documents and highlight and comment on them. So back into more of the English side of things, I could actually highlight content inside of any document and leave individual commentary in particular points in time inside of that document. So we're really facilitating a super deep critique of their work, and it doesn't just have to be English. Like peer review is not just for English anymore. It can be anything that you're doing. For those science classes, for example, let's say we actually had the students solving problems and recording themselves with their phone, solving the equations and talking about the different approaches they're taking as they go through it. And then they're formally assigned to look at each other's work and think and listen to their strategy and see if they agree with the strategy they take, or was there a different strategy they could have used. So you can set up these more formal pairing processes that maybe you wouldn't be able to do otherwise without a tool to be able to facilitate that. And we do see a lot of people who start to leverage multimedia where they haven't in classes before. So in biomedical engineering, for example, let's say there are actually sketches of human anatomy or something along those lines. I don't know biomedical engineering very well, but say there's something that would be maybe even sketched out as a molecular equation of something they're working on. They take pictures of that and throw it up here, and then other people can draw on that image. If they recorded videos and talking about it, other people can leave commentary on it. So we're really elevating the richness of what they do. I'm going to pause for a second. I see there was a question on peer review. So I'm going to close this down real quick and see, before I talk about the question around how we make that peer review process more easy, does anyone have any question of just what peer review is and what some of these critique tools allow us to do before I roll into kind of some of the easing of all of this from an instructor perspective? All right, so when I talk about the pain of peer review, a lot of instructors are frustrated because, let's say I wanted to set up this peer review, I would actually have to go in and be like, I want Nick to review Teresa and Laverne. I want Teresa to review Nick and Laverne. I want Bob to review Jack, and all of this set up. And then if one of those students is late, bad things happen. Or if one of those students doesn't turn in paper, bad things happen. So what we do instead is we handle all of that for you. Like, we will do the assignment. We will make sure everyone gets the equal number of peer reviews to the best of our ability, so that you as an instructor or your instructors, if you're an ID, don't have to deal with that. You still have the control to do that if you want. You can use your LMS groups to be able to say, I do want these group of 3 students to review each other. And so you do have some control, or you can say, these group of 5, I want them to review 2 of their peers from this group of 5. You can do that type of stuff, but by default, you don't have to. By default, if you don't care who's reviewing who, you just want them to review somebody, default mode is you don't have to do anything and we handle it all for you. So the fact that I clicked this continue peer review, when it said start peer review when I initially started, it went and found someone for me to review without the instructor having to intercede. Additionally, we put all of this into the same multiple due date thing, and we will auto grade that if you want. In our experience and a lot of our research, instructors don't want to grade peer review. They want the peer review to happen and they want it to be thorough. And so we'll say, look, if they complete it and they complete it on time and they write enough words to indicate as a proxy for quality, we will give them the points. And you as the instructor can always override that. You can always change that point totals, but we're going to go ahead and put that in your gradebook for you so you can spend your time just monitoring the process and see what kind of interesting things are popping out of it, but you don't have to spend your time grading for process completion if you don't want to. And then when you finally get into the actual grading, we lay out everything for you that the student has done. Like, what did they submit? Who did they peer review? So you can see it all there without having to go hunt around. In particular, in Canvas, this is really difficult to figure out all the information you need to actually peer review. It's just all directly inside a SpeedGrader in Canvas for you, or it's all inside of the gradebook inside of Blackboard for you as well. So you can just see it all there. Okay, so these are our two most in-depth tools: discussions and peer review. Leveraging multimedia stuff really kind of levels up the richness of it. I'm going to jump back into some different topic areas, though, if I don't have any questions on sort of these really in-depth modes. And I will say, David just put a link out just a few chat modes ago that has much deeper conversations around getting trained on discussion specifically if you want, or getting trained on peer review specifically if you want. But I will also say, like, our individual help guides cover all of this stuff as well. So if this was enough for you to get the idea and you want to go just follow a quick tutorial video, David, can you put the main instructor help center out into the chat as well, so that they know how to go find those documents? Because everything I'm talking about and hinting at today is covered way in depth in sort of a choose your own adventure video style as well. Thanks, David. All right, I'm going to come back in. I'm going to stop acting as a student. I'm going to come in as an instructor now. So working back from this, these discussions and these peer reviews only work well if the students were prepared and if the students were actually comfortable with each other. So how do we get the students prepared? The next thing that we often get asked, and I'd say our third most popular tool beyond discussions and peer review, is this idea of like getting the students to do a reading by having them actually annotate the reading. So if people are familiar with hypothesis and perusal as annotation tools, what I'm about to show you is our competitor to those tools, and it's available to all Harmonize users. So if you're already using Harmonize discussions, this is just something that you have access to. All right, so I'm going to open up the budget of the US government here. This was something I wanted my students to read through, and I've uploaded this into my class as a PDF. And I've asked my students, basically, I gave them a set of instructions where I'm like, I want you to go through and analyze the budget and find a couple things that you think are purely political, et cetera. And then they are tasked with actually reading what's happening in this document. I'm going to get this zoomed in a little bit. So you can see here, like, there's a bunch of things that are highlighted in the document. And there are comments happening in the sidebar. Let me delete this draft comment that I was working on in a previous demo. So any of these individual comments has a sidebar conversation happening about it. And I can go through and click on each of these and see what's going on, or I can march through each of the comments that's happening in the document. What we're after here is that reading is often not done, or it's done very passively and very quickly, or maybe they even use AI to summarize it, trying to get the gist of what's going on, and then they roll into class either unprepared or ill-prepared. By giving them a task like this, we are actually encouraging them to think harder about the content. We are forcing them to read it closely enough that there's things that they want to actually either drop pins on or highlight. So we're taking it from a passive activity up into more of an interactive activity, to where they're finding things, they're highlighting them, and they are actually responding to each other as well. There's a research in this coming out of ASU. It's called the ICAP framework, that shows that if we can raise this reading from a passive activity up to something that's interactive with their peers, the comprehension goes up 10%. Sometimes more in terms of what we're doing. But more importantly, they actually get it done, because this can be graded with a due date based on what the student is actually doing. In this fall, we're actually going to introduce auto grading into this with multiple due dates as well. So you could actually set it up and be like, read this, annotate 2 things, reply to 3 of your peers, and you're going to get the points if you get it done on time, type of thing. So that by the time they actually come to class, either in-person class or into a discussion or into anything, we have some confidence that they at least have opened the reading and hopefully annotated it. And you can encourage them to come and participate. You can't make anyone participate, but because the grade's attached to it and there's an activity attached to it, they are more likely to do so. A question came up around accessibility on this. This is all keyboard navigable. You can highlight and move stuffs with a screen reader and a keyboard. So yeah, you don't have to be able to use your mouse and highlight things to be able to use these tools. So you're not excluding people from an accessibility viewpoint. While we're on the accessibility topic, I'd love to dwell on accessibility a little bit. Um, the I was just pushing video before in some of these reflections, but there's a lot of accessibility concerns with videos. Um, in particular, starting next April, all videos are going to have what's called an audio description associated with them. And for those that aren't familiar, what that means is if I can't see what I'm doing with my right hand in this video. So I'm listening to the video, but I have no idea that I'm going crazy with hands and waving them unless I verbally say I'm now waving both of my hands in the air. That's bad from an accessibility standpoint because as a person with a vision impairment, I am not participating at the same level. We are actually using AI to solve this. It's going to be coming out in the new year, where we will actually use AI to make a draft describing what's happening in your video for you that you can review, so that you can step into this video realm. And if I go crazy and start waving my hands, the AI will say, "The man with the gray beard has raised both hands and is waving them crazy." Whatever it is that is actually happening in the video will be described as an alternative track that the students who need it can switch to. So just keep this in mind. Like if you're doing video, you'll want this to be enabled, and making sure that you have students are aware of it, et cetera. I took an accessibility deep dive there, but accessibility is important on all these tools. All of these tools are accessible to WCAG 2.1 AA standards. Everything that I show you meets that level of standard.
Hey, Marcus, while
Okay.
we're on standards, I thought I'd point out real quick. I've had several instructors mention they really like the social annotation, PDF annotation, because if you're trying to do RSI weekly in your classes, you don't want to overload students sometimes with having too many assignments. This will actually take care of your RSI because it's basically a discussion that's happening, but then you're doing the reading and making sure they're doing the reading for that week. So you can kind of get both of those checked off your box at the same time.
Yeah, that's a good point I should have covered a little bit, which is engagement doesn't always have to be the same thing. And in fact, students will get bored and you'll get bored if it's always the same thing. And if you have a reading for a week, but you didn't really think it was worth a full-blown discussion, put one of these into your class instead. And now it's like, yes, I have a reading and I want you to actually discuss with each other as you're reading. And I, as the instructor, I'm going to be in here replying to things that you're saying if I think they're going off track or whatever. So I'm facilitating the discussion as you're reading this actual document. So this is a way to sort of bring engagement into the class in different ways as well, and going through. So I see a question just came in. If I already have an annotation assignment in a course, will I have to recreate the assignment to include milestones or classmates' replies once these features are available in the future? Great question. You will be able to go back in and turn them on just in the edit settings up here once they're available. So if you're already doing annotations and you want to add those multiple due dates and auto grading, you'll just go and edit, add 2 milestones, set it up for auto grading. We are building a nice wizard, so the next one you create will be even easier. It'll just walk you through that process and turn them on by default for you. So this is one step back from discussions or even a replacement for discussions, right? This is engagement inside of the reading. I'm showing you a paper that they're highlighting, but let me scan some of the subjects we were talking about earlier. This works with any PDF. So let's say you're in that communications class and you have like a web landing page that you're trying to get them to critique from a communications perspective. You could actually print that to PDF and pull it in here. And if it has a bunch of images on it, it's not just highlighting text. You can see I've dropped these pins everywhere, so they can actually drop pins on any visuals that are in the class and leave commentary that way. So it doesn't just have to be text-based annotations. It can be anything that can be turned into a PDF basically, and then they can drop pins on it and be like, if it were an image, they'd be like, this image on the website is not appropriate or whatever. Ooh, misspelled appropriate badly there. So keep in mind that once again, I often use text examples because I think reading is where most of this can happen. But when you get into other things, like let's say I'm actually doing database diagrams and I want them to think about them and analyze them, they can drop pins on them. If I'm doing schematics in any sort of science-based class, they can do that as well. Okay, let me bop out of this tool and into another one to talk about how else do we build engagement. Caitlin, thanks for coming. Have fun wherever you got head off to, and appreciate the accessibility call out. So important with some of these engagement tools. Like we can very easily push people out of their accessibility comfort zone, which is bad. All right, so now we've we've had a discussion, we've had a peer review, we've backed up one step, and we've set up a reading for them to do and made that gradable. I'm going to back up one step more and be like, how do I know that my students are actually confused or not? How do I know if they've read the content that was maybe a YouTube video, so I couldn't use that nice annotation tool? We have the ability to put auto-graded polls into your class that you can do a bunch of different things with. The example here is one that David actually built for one of his webinars, where he had an anatomy video that he wanted the students to watch, and he asked a simple poll question below it. I think he asked, yeah, more than one poll question about that particular video. Think of it as a mini engagement check. No correct answer. It's a poll. So there's not like a quiz where they're going to get graded right or wrong. But if they do answer the poll questions, they get the points. And so I'm trying to get people to watch this YouTube video. I can actually just throw it into a page with a quick little series of polls below it. It now has a due date because it's a graded. I set it up as auto graded. So the students know I need to go watch this YouTube video. I need to answer these 3 questions about it before X date passes. And then you can mix these in whatever format. I don't remember in this one, David, you did a whole bunch of poll questions. He could have done a video with 3 poll questions and then another video with 2 poll questions, or a recording of himself with an additional poll question. The sky's the limit on what you can do here as well. It's a way to do an engagement check to make sure your students are awake and they are interacting with your content, but it's also a way for you to then come in and be like, what did they answer about the content? Like, what did they take away from this content? What can I learn about my students before I launch into a discussion, or before I turn them loose on the final assignment? Is there perhaps some confusion still happening around this particular subject area that I need to be able to check in on? I didn't even have to mix these with content. We have some instructors that run a quick syllabus poll at the module 1 to be like, hey, what did you read in the syllabus? Did you see my AI policy? What did you think my AI policy was? Once again, it could have been done with a quiz, but this is very low stakes. So it didn't even have to have a correct answer. It could be like they answered, and you can tell, did they read your syllabus or not? Because if they answered all across the board, you can know that that's incorrect, and you can deal from there. So it's kind of a mixture of whatever you want. They don't have to be graded, but I encourage people to make them graded, because then students get notified that there's a due date. They come in, they do it, and they do it for the grade. A tiny amount, percentage points of grades, but it allows them to know it's important. This is that one more step back. So now it's literally like I watched the content and then I answered it. I'm not interacting inside the content, but I watched the content and then I'm answering. Maybe I'm pausing and scrolling back and forth as I'm answering the poll questions. Also, sometimes students report that they read the poll questions to know what it is they're supposed to be paying attention to. Then they come back and watch the video. Some instructors will mix them up in that way as well to even change the order of things. Sky's the limit for you as the instructor on this. This is called polling. We even have some instructors put one of these in every module of just like, how's everybody feeling? Are you confused? Are you not confused? Do you feel like you have the content down or not? These are anonymous, so they can answer them comfortably. You actually can't tell who answered what. We don't expose that. They are 100% anonymous polls, but you can get just a quick pulse on where your class is at. You can do these inside of other activities as well. We have some instructors actually put polls attached to every discussion topic they do. So do this activity, this discussion activity, and let me know what you thought of it. That way, if this one is routinely panned, they can always come back and change that next semester and make it a different type of activity. So this is polling, quick comprehension check. I'm going to pivot now into the next sort of comprehension check tool we have, which is called our Q&A forum. But do I have any questions on polling before I leave? I see Mandy just asked one, can they comment in polls? Right now, these are just multiple choice. We don't do any like free-form comment, create a word cloud or anything cool like that yet. Although I am going to add a vote for that every time someone asks for something. We take a vote on it, and then it moves it up our roadmap based on people's asking about it. Because the thing that I think would be cool here would be to be able to take text-based answers and create a word cloud on them. So you can get a feel for where the students are at when you're asking them to write their thoughts. It automatically pulls into a word cloud, and then everybody can see what everybody else is thinking. And wouldn't that be a great way to create some free-form engagement inside of an asynchronous class? All right, moving on from polls, I'm going to go into question and answer areas. We see these used a lot in the science classes, but we also see them used a lot in classes where there may be some student anxiety over a sense of belonging. Like, am I in the right class? Do I have imposter syndrome? Like, I'm a first generation college student. Does anyone else in this class have the same questions that I have? Right now, if people have questions, they have to email their instructors to ask those questions, and then the instructor answers them. Or maybe the instructor sets up a discussion forum to be able to handle those. What we've done is created a dedicated question and answer space that you can embed inside of your course so that the students can see everybody else's questions. So in this case, math question, I'm stuck on how to solve it. Someone answered it. I nominated that as the best answer. Someone else answered a question anonymously. It has one response, but no nomination as a best answer yet. And so we create this pool of questions that helps both, is my question already be answered? Helps from a, wow, everybody else in the class has similar sort of questions that I have. Maybe I do belong here. And or save some instructor time because you don't have to answer every question repeatedly. You can be like, all those questions are answered in the Q&A forum in module 1. Please go take a look there. I've already answered them. There's some other things you probably should read about there as well. So it's a way for them to be able to communicate with each other and communicate with you. I have this set up to be able to watch topic, which basically means I'm going to get notified anytime someone asks me a question or asks a question here. You can have, if you are lucky enough to have TAs, you could have the TAs do that as well. So that we can create this pool of questions. And these can operate in 2 ways. Like we have the course Q&A, which is basically one pool of questions for the entire course. For the people in the sciences in the room, often we will see people create what we call a topic-specific Q&A, which is, hey, Module 7 is going to be difficult. I want to embed a space for questions just about Module 7. I'm going to stick those in my Module 7 outline, and then people can ask questions there as they pertain to Module 7 versus having a whole mishmash of questions that pertain to everything in the course all in one place. This has the same ability as I was showing you of authoring content in different ways, video, media, etc. Same functionality here. There is a downfall to this tool that I'm going to highlight because I think if you're going to use it, you need to be aware of sort of student psychology. They have been emailing their instructors for years. If you don't want them to email the instructor, you need to make it really clear that this is the mechanism to do it. If instructors just put one of these in the course and they don't tell students that that's where the questions go, they still get emailed the questions. So just keep that in mind if you're putting it in a course. It needs to be pretty clear, like, by putting it in every module. If you want, ask your questions here. The instructor will get notified or whatever it is. But you need to create almost a culture shift of like, I'm not emailing my instructor. I am contributing to this centralized pool of questions. There's some student behavior that has to be changed there if you want them to not just do the default and email their instructor. The good news on this is that it is anonymous, and there is a lot of research that shows that first generation college students don't ask for help and they don't ask questions of their instructor. And so this is a way for them to put those questions out anonymously. We give them an animal name for any question they post anonymously so that they can get that question out there and still answered, maybe answered by their peers, maybe answered by the instructor, hard to say, but it gives them that sort of safe space to be able to ask those questions. And Mandy asked, does it notify you? Yes, by default, the instructor in the course gets notified if a question is asked in the class. So you'll get an email notification and you'll get a little red one would appear on the bell here and it would show you that. And you can check and change your notification settings for you as an individual, just as your students can by going into notification settings and seeing what it is that we actually notify on. In this case, course Q&A, new course Q&A questions are notified immediately, or you can change it to daily, weekly, etc. As well. Okay, let me close this out and go back into modules. What is my next thing to take a look at? Where are we at on time? Got about 15 minutes left. I've covered a lot of the engagement points. We have a new tool that's actually just called an individual assignment. I'm going to highlight that because there's a piece called AI coaching that I think is important for you to know about. That can be done with the tools I've already showed you, could be done with discussions, but it also can be used with individual assignments. So when I say individual assignment, I basically mean there's no peer connectivity. This is just a standard assignment. As my capstone project, I want you to do a PowerPoint presentation and it needs to be 5 minutes long or 10 minutes long. Here's the rubric I'm going to use to grade you. No student can see any other student's work, but I do want to use these tools from Harmonize to be able to have you record the video straight into Harmonize without having to go find another tool to do it. That's called an individual assignment. It looks just like Harmonize discussions, but there's just no visibility between peers. Mostly instructors use that because they like the multimedia capability. If I'm in a music class, I want them to be able to do video and audio easily. If I'm in a communications class, I want them to be able to do screen share easily. But for the written classes, there is one additional level that people use this for, which is what this idea of AI student coaching. So if you have built an activity and you have built a rubric, the students, if you want, have the ability to solicit a first round of feedback from AI, which basically says, "Hey, students, how did you do given your work based on the rubric by the instructor?" So let's say I'm creating a post here to turn in for this assignment. This is my assignment submission 1, and I'm going to do a terrible job on the assignment. So basically, I didn't even really do the assignment. But pretend I did maybe a mediocre job on that. I can go ahead and click View AI Feedback, and it's going to look at what I've done, and it's going to show me the rubric, and it's going to tell me which parts of the rubric I should focus on if I want to do a better job. So you can see here, it's going to tell me across the board, much room for improvement across the board on all parts of the rubric. It's going to tell me what the rubric said. So does the student language, syntax, grammar, and overall presentations clear and concise? Well, it was not, because I don't remember what I wrote, but it was do a terrible job on the assignment with terrible misspelled, no capitalization. So it highlighted that as the main thing I need to focus on. And so it opened that one up for me. But I could go ahead and look at, did I include lots of evidence for it? And there's still much room for improvement there. This is a way to create a self-reflection loop. We're not going to tell them on line 7, your grammar was bad. We're going to say writing mechanics and clarity could use some work. So you can create this sort of, can they get their best work put in before they actually submit it so that you don't have to see it? Or if I'm in more of a peer review or I'm in more discussion, can they get some confidence building first round of revision before they turn their work in so that their best work is put out there for other people to look at? This is an optional tool, but people use it in the assignments, they use it in peer review, they use it in the discussions, and it's optional for the students. They have to click that button I just clicked to be able to show what that work looks like as well. If I were to go and revise this work and scan again, it would show me some trend lines. You're getting better. Like this particular part got better, this particular part got worse, et cetera, so that they can iterate with that. And what we see in the data is that students do iterate with it up until they aren't making improvements anymore, and then they submit the work, which is exactly what we would hope for. Do as well as you can on your own, turn in the work, and then the instructor steps in and gives really substantive feedback, more on the core of where they couldn't make improvements on their own. So individual assignments also available, AI coaching also available, sort of all these different things to be able to help your students out. It's up to you which of these tools you use. Now I was going to pause for questions. I have about 10 minutes left. I can revisit any of these. David, I don't know if there's any subject areas of things you saw that you thought I should have covered some examples for. Happy to have you jump in on those, or anything as well.
I'll just add real quick while people are maybe gathering their questions they may have. Um, I hear from a lot of instructors some of the simplest things that we offer are sometimes the best tools that they praise about Harmonize, which is tagging people, the reactions, and you kind of already showed this, but the YouTube videos actually playing within the screen and not having to go. It seems very simple, but these are all things that just I hear instructors a lot of times say. There's just sometimes those little things that make a difference.
That's true. I tend to focus on some of the more fancy things, but some of the things David's talking about, like if I bring in a YouTube video, it's going to pull in that player for me just by pasting in the link. And now it plays directly in line. And this is the same technology Facebook uses. So anything you paste in on Facebook and it gives you a nice preview, we're going to have a nice preview in Harmonize. Great from an accessibility viewpoint because it's actually, let's say you posted an article from a blog, it's going to give us the title and the summary. So it's not just going to be a link that says www.youtube.com. It's going to instead say USDLA webinar enhancing first year student interaction type of thing, so that the students can decide if they want to click on it or not. And I could have done the same thing by clicking on the little link tool down here. So there's multiple paths to get to it. But yeah, those types of things are handy, and we just take them for granted nowadays because I guess we've been around for Harmonize for so long. But it's the type of stuff that's just not there in the standard discussions that we expect to be there on the internet today. Or at least our students expect to be there. I don't know that I have expectations for the internet. It's kind of a dark place out there, but but yeah, those and then reactions as well. Yeah, Dave is right. Like a lot of people, a lot of instructors show their presence by coming in and giving reactions, sometimes while they're doing their grading, because you can actually do all of these things at once from the grading interface of reacting to students' posts and getting your grading done and all of that stuff at one time. Okay. Randall asked a great question. Does the AI coaching work if you're using a rubric you created and attached in Canvas? It does not. And the reason for that is that when we looked at all of the rubrics that were attached to our assignments in Canvas, some of them were great. A lot of them didn't have sufficient detail for us to be able to successfully coach on because it was often a rubric that was reused. So it's like, hey, here's a discussion rubric that we use for all of our discussions. There's not enough assignment or discussion specific detail inside of that rubric for us to be able to coach successfully. So we just refuse to coach on them because the worst thing that we could have happen would be to coach a student incorrectly because of either insufficient information or otherwise. When we build, for those that aren't familiar with Harmonize, let me go ahead and just add one real quick. We build things with AI that are very, very specific for um, for a particular assignment. So if I were to say, okay, I want to do a Harmonize discussion, I'm going to create a new one. I'm going to call this a Civil War discussion. I'm going to create it and then add it. It's going to put it right here at the bottom. We're going to walk you through Wizard to get all of this stuff set up. And the first thing we're going to ask you for is, do you want to do those multiple due dates and turn it in integration? But we're also going to ask about the individual activity. So let's say I'm doing Civil War and causes and how it relates to modern politics, learning objectives, etc. We're gonna, if you want, you can write your own instructions, but we're gonna generate them for you. I'm doing this just to get a detailed activity so I can show you what rubric generation looks like. Because now I have an activity that is all about the Civil War. I could go back and forth with our AI and make this exactly what I wanted. But once I have that activity and I've edited it, the rubric that oh, I didn't do a graded one, so I can't do a rubric. Darn it. Ha! Shot myself in the foot with my demo there. If I had actually set this up as graded, we would build a rubric that is very specific to this assignment. It draws on specifically what we are asking students for in this activity and whether or not they did it. That's the level of specificity we need to be able to allow AI coaching to work appropriately with the guardrails that the instructor sets. If I'm not doing a rubric that's specific to the assignment, we don't have enough to be confident that we're not going to screw up. And so we're very, very cautious to not coach if we aren't confident that we can coach correctly. David is right that if you did actually have a rubric built, so when we build a rubric in Canvas, we put it back into Canvas rubric section for you to be able to reuse. Or you can build a rubric and go ahead and bring your rubric content in and use it that way as well. So we will label things that are not specific enough as uncoachable though. So we will look at them and be like, I can't coach with that. So we will coach on half your rubric if it's specific enough. You'll see it in the UI when you're configuring it. It'll tell you like, we cannot coach on that. That's not specific enough. Or maybe you're asking for video content. We can't read video content and things like that. All right, that was a mouthful about coaching. Okay, I have a question now about peer presentation. So question about peer-to-peer presentations. If students are doing a PowerPoint presentation and we want peers to comment on the presentation with video or otherwise, would they share their screen with the PowerPoint display, record the screen, and post? Then students would use the annotation tool to make comments. That is 100% correct, Mandy. You nailed it. So you have the students can do two things. We often have students use the screen share, present the PowerPoint, and then any module, any video that's in the system, be it a screen recording or a reflection or anything, has a little button below it that says respond within video, and that allows them to actually leave timestamp commentary on things. And you can do that in a formalized peer review setting or an informal discussion setting. So like if I came into this because I know it has a video associated with it, you'll see this respond within video. And here's a PowerPoint presentation I did, also has respond within video. That opens up a player, lets me watch it, pause it, leave comments, and move on. We also have people attach their PowerPoint slides because anything that is an attachment, we will allow them to open up and drop pins on as well. So they could just critique the PowerPoint slides if they want, or they could critique the video. So you're kind of offering students two paths to go with this as well. And then I see a similar question. If doing group work, discussing a paper as in peer review annotations, and you need to keep rotating partners, how would you go about it? So you want to, let me clarify this. Do you want to keep changing partners, or do you want to keep the same group of people working throughout time as they're progressing together? Or are you trying to switch them up between every assignment as well? Throw that answer to that question out. Switch them up. Yeah, so you can, if you just let it go, it's probably going to switch them up. The likelihood that they all get the same people when they're doing a formalized peer review is unlikely. However, you can manually create LMS groups. So in Canvas, you can come into the People tab, or in Blackboard, go in and create groups and create your own switched up groups. And then when you're configuring each Harmonize thing, there's the ability to come into these edit settings here and pick which group applies to this particular assignment. So here in post settings, if I were saying I only want students to work in groups, it's going to pull in my LMS group sets and let me pick which one. So maybe I was started them in group 1, moved them into group 2 halfway through the course or whatever. You can change this per assignment as you go, or you can keep it consistent as you go. And this applies to peer review or discussions. So you can keep those peer review groups consistent if they've been working together, or you can switch them up if you're doing different peer review assignments, or same thing for informal discussions as well.
Marcus, could you scroll up to the top and show the notification settings real quick?
Oh, you mean in my actual, for me as a human?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It's like, to me as a human, what a strange thing. Oh, you want to know about me as a human, David? You're in notification settings.
Yeah, so you the student or you as the instructor have the ability to come in for different notifications to change those frequencies and uh, update that however you would like. So
And this is the default. Students will, I see the question now, students will get a notified if someone responds to their content. So if someone comes in and comments on their PowerPoint slides or does timestamp commentary and then publishes it, they will get notified and pulled back in as well. So come and take a look at it and see. If it's getting crazy busy, we often recommend that some students are just smart enough to know that there's a notification settings they can get to, others are not. If they are in 5 classes doing lots of Harmonize stuff and there's so much peer engagement on, they can come in and be like, daily, please, for the classes that they care list as well. Okay, let me save this. I see a question from Mandy about video comments. So let me talk about, I'll go actually show you where are we at. A few minutes left. If you have a few minutes, I don't know if I'll cover this in 3 minutes or not, but let me see. So if I'm responding within video, the timestamp commentary can be only text on individual times. So if I click respond within video, what it's going to start doing is it's going to give me a copy of the video that I can play. At any point, I can say, I'm going to respond at this point in time, and I can leave a text comment. So this is doing individual timestamp comments on it. You will notice, however, that it added this in context of a broader comment here, where I can do a general overall written comment here. And what we do have some really fancy students, and I will admit this is fancy. So this is not like I'd say common behavior, but we see instructors do this sometimes as well, where they will click on the video recorder right below it, and they'll be like, oh, to this comment I left as the very first point on your file, here's what I was thinking, here's how I would like you to have done it, etc. And then they'll pause, and then they'll come back up and they'll start watching this again, and they'll be like, all right, cool. And then they're going to add another timestamp marker, and this is my second comment. And then they'll come here and they'll be like, unpause. And for my second comment, here's what I was thinking, etc. So you can kind of mix and match and combine our tools in different ways. This is sort of a creative use of it. Your students aren't going to discover this unless they're really quite savvy with tools. But this is something I've seen instructors do and or can encourage students to do. But as you can see, it's kind of like I'm having to pause and go up and leave comments. What we often see is that they will just leave a bunch of commentary, and then they will come down and record one video at the end if they want to do video feedback on the overall post, etc. But it's all done in context of this broader authoring interface. So they could do overall text comments. They can do those timestamp commentary. They can do an overall video response, and then when they publish it, it becomes one submission for everything, and the student gets notified, okay, here it all is. They can come back and click through and see the individual points you left. They can watch your video, they can read your text, etc. I did cover that in 3 minutes. I was surprised. Um, other other questions for us on any of these different tools? I am going to show you what our help site looks like because I've shown you a million things today, and the likelihood that you are going to dive in and remember them all or know how to get to them, I want to give you this URL. This is our Harmonize 101, and it is an interactive video that walks you through everything. So you can be like, what do I want to do? I want to configure features. I was interested in assignments and peer review. It was peer review. So you can sort of choose your own adventure, and we will take you to the right place and show you a video of how to do the things with text and everything as well.
Marcus, there was a question about can other peers see the annotations or just the student that posted the presentation?
That is up to you. So if you did formalized peer review, only the student who its work is being reviewed would see the commentary. If you did just an informal discussion and they're doing that, only the people in that student's group would see the commentary. Or if you had it open for everybody, only everyone then would see the commentary. So there's a little bit of control, Mandy, for you to be able to pick and choose which visibility area you're looking for as well. Let me put one more thing out for those. I see a lot of people having to take off, but support.
Just a note real quick, Marcus. You can now, if the comment is coming from you as the instructor can actually make their comments private. So if you wanted to have it to where only that student saw those comments from you.
That is true.
Yeah.
That's true. But then often, and that's if you're doing commenting in a public discussions. If you're using an individual assignment, then of course it's private to you. You can use those same critique timestamp commentary tools when you're critiquing their individual assignment, and obviously then there's no peer visibility at all. Yeah. I did put our support email out, so we have amazing support people. I know that's weird to say because often you get support and it's kind of brain dead. The folks on this are the people that help build the product. Some have an instructional design background. I'm on this, etc. You will get a more than thorough response to any question you ask. So if you're trying to figure out how to do some of these things and you just need to put some thoughts down, drop them in the email to us and we can answer, give you some guides. We can jump on a Zoom call and walk you through it if you want. It's kind of up to you on what you need. All right, I am happy to hang out and take any questions if anyone has them. We are a little over time, so I won't be offended at all if y'all have to leave. I know some people already had to take off as well. So I really appreciate y'all coming. I don't know if we will put this recording out or not. That's a good question.
We did the last one.
Did we? Okay, so are you comfortable putting this one out as well so people have recording? Awesome. Mandy says yes, please. So David, you're on the hook now. You can create the video, send it out. And then yeah, let us know. I'd also say give us feedback on the if you felt this was too much content. We constantly struggle with this of how much do we cover. I bounced around between 7 different tools today talking about different ways to do engagement. That was more the intent of this session, but let us know if you felt like it was too much or not. If you have ways you think we can make this better, drop us an email as well to be able to let us know. Always looking for ways to kind of get the information out about all the different ways Harmonize can be used, because there's a lot, frankly. If you actually tried to lace all of these into your course, you would be quite the pro at Harmonize. You'd be able to do amazing things, but it's like, how do you find the appropriate spot and know how to use the tool and get it in there?
And I know a lot of people have left already, but I'll put this in the video and send it out in the email as well. We have some great webinars coming up from our instructional designer, Alex, who's going to be talking about individual tools. And so if you want to get a little bit more in depth, we'll have those available coming up.
Cool. Yeah, and if you do end up with something that you're really excited about that you build, let us know, because David and I do webinars all the time, sharing ideas where we'll put an instructor up on the webinar stage and be like, let's hear what they did, or an instructional designer, because often other instructors want to hear from other instructors. David has done a whole series of webinars that are up on our website, like how to teach English, how to teach math with Harmonize, how to teach all these things, because it's us giving voice to the instructors and what it is that they're doing. So excellent. All right, thank you, everybody. Have a good I guess I was going to say weekend, but it's only Tuesday. Oh, dear Lord. Wow. All right. Have a good one, everybody. Thanks, David.
Thanks. Bye, guys.